So America big tech started laying off workers, mass layoff in big tech. Uh, it had to do with the oil petrodollar when uh, when OPEC plus one started to raise the inflationary price of oil. That brought up the prices of food commodities throughout the world, and so it also raised up the petrodollar debt obligation. So when real estate prices started going up in America, and China wants to buy oil from the Saudis with their own currencies, and Russia and the other OPEC members are putting pressure on the House of Saud to wean off the petrodollar, the American petrodollar. That all has an effect on commerce, and so between uh, between the inflation of the stimulus during the COVID outbreak, and then uh, the adjustment of the Federal Reserve to bring inflation under control by raising interest rates, thereby raising the interest rates of Treasury bills, debt obligations, and security bonds of the Treasury Department. Uh, at the same time, there's a European struggle for energy independence, and you got to phase in the green renewable energies. Pretty soon, all the electric car manufacturers around the world are accelerating to wean off the gasoline engine. And so the further that all the automobile industries throughout the world starts to phase in the electric AV manufacturing production of their companies, that would mean that the petrodollar greenback reserve will suffer. Thereby, America will start to experience hyperinflations of their runaway debt obligations to their debt holders, international debt holders, when it comes to their security bonds, treasury bills. America would experience a high runaway interest rates on those debt obligations. So what you experience now with the tech companies having mass layoffs simultaneously, that's due to the stock exchange of Wall Street and the foreign investments in America's capital, as far as their industries. Most likely, the experience that the tech companies felt was that foreign exchange were pulling back from their shareholdings of America's tech companies, due to the fact of these other situations is having an effect not only on the food markets of high prices for food, but also the more that the world weans off the gasoline petrodollar, the more that America will have debt obligations that they won't be able to meet. Eventually, the world will wean off and drop off of the petrol gasoline dollars. And when that happens, America will not have a way, or will have a hard time experiencing how to pay back that debt obligations. And there will be probably a run on the markets. So what you're experiencing now with the shareholdings of big tech have mass layoffs is a microcosm of what's to come. So, so once America's greenback petrodollar is dropped as the world reserve currency, America will have runaway inflation and runaway interest rates to their debt obligations that's being held by the Treasury Department. And so once the petrodollar is weaned off, meaning once the world phases in green renewable energies and the world electric automobiles starts to wean off of gasoline, once Saudi Arabia and OPEC members start having peak oil, in other words, once their oils are on a downward trajectory as peak oil, the world will be forced to wean off of petrol for gasoline vehicles. And once that happens, America will lose its leverage economically as controlling the world economical order. And so what you're seeing now with big tech is a microcosm of that effect. And it's going to keep on happening. So America is going to keep on having uh, runaway inflation when it comes to their debt obligations. The federal debt obligations are going to be having runaway inflation, runaway interest rates, hikes on their treasury bills and security bonds. They're going to, Congress is constantly going to be arguing about raising the debt ceiling. It's going to get out of control to the point that the government will have runaway inflation and they won't be able to print up money to pay their debt obligations. America will experience hyper runaway inflation. There will be a run on the banks. And the big tech companies, they will keep on shrinking as far as shareholders in Wall Street investing in America's tech companies. All of this is because of weaning off of the petrodollar. Eventually, it's going to get to that point that the world realizes that it no longer wants to invest in the gasoline petrodollar of America and no longer wants to maintain its enslavement under the yoke of America's world reserve currency that's pegged on the gasoline dependency of the world. So eventually, like I said, all the automobile industries will realize that gasoline, it has to be phased out because of the detriment of carbon emissions and how it's destroying our planet. And like I said, every other country on the face of the earth doesn't want to be enslaved by American petrodollar hegemony, enslavement of keeping the world enslaved to gasoline. That gives a advantageous superiority to America's currency. And so the world is realizing that it doesn't like to be enslaved with the whims of Washington when it comes to foreign affairs, international nations accords with each other in the international community. They don't want to be enslaved to the whims of America's hegemony of world reserve currency, petrol, gasoline currency, the petrol American greenback. And like I said, if you studied this past year, due to the hyperinflation of the epidemic and the high interest rates of the war in Europe, so Europe energy struggles between Russia and America to keep natural gas flowing through Europe. So in China, Xi reaching out to the House of Saud and insinuating to buy OPEC plus one in Chinese currency. So I'm pretty sure that the House of Saud eventually is going to sell oil to China in their own currencies instead of the American greenback petrodollar. And so all of that has an effect on America's economy. And so the more that the world accelerates liberating themselves from this type of oppression, economical yoke of enslavement, or the more that the world realizes that gasoline tailpipe emissions are destroying this planet, the more that the auto industries throughout the world realizes that they have to phase out the gasoline engine to safeguard this planet. All of that, eventually America will have to realize that their days as the world reserve petrol currency, as the world reserve currency, is coming to an end. And so the politicians will start to have a hard time adapting to replacing the petrodollar, and how would they try to keep their hegemony as a world reserve currency. And so Congress will constantly have debates of raising the debt ceilings, runaway inflation, the high interest debt obligations to their fiscal deficit. The Treasury Department will have a hard time generating enough gimmicks as far as what to sell on the international market as far as American debt obligations. And like I said, America will keep on experiencing. It's like the saying goes: the higher you are, the higher you are, the harder you fall, and that's metaphysics. That's physics. The higher you are, the harder you fall, and that's going to be true when it comes to America falling as a well-reserved currency, petrol, gasoline, dollar. When that comes crashing down, America and the politicians will have a hard time adjusting. And so what you're seeing now with all the tech companies simultaneously laying off is because of the effect of commerce buying into America's uh, Wall Street markets. Because there's a lot of uncertainty in America's situation, political interest situation when it comes to Trump fascism is turning off a lot of countries for investing into America. Also, like I said, OPEC plus one eventually they will have peak oil when it comes to gasoline, and the more that Saudi Arabia is experiencing peak oil, the more pressure they will have to wean off the petrol dollar, the gasoline dollar, and the more green renewable energies for the transportation grids of tomorrow's electric vehicle industries manufacturers, the less the gasoline petrol dollar will have leverage when it comes to world commerce. So all of this is basically unavoidable. It's destined to happen as far as the collapse of the petrol dollar. Uh, what America would replace it with, to me, I'm not sure, but I don't think they will be able to retain their world status as a world reserve currency. This gimmick of scheme, of a scam, of enslaving the world to the whims of gasoline when it comes to America greenback is coming to an end. I'm kind of glad it did because I believe in saving the planet from destruction, and America is the number one culprit of gasoline enslavement to the rest of the world. So have a good time falling.